I'm Mark Weber of the Computer History Museum, and I'm here on May 3rd, 2024, with Zoya Khare, who is a student at the Khan Lab School, 8th grade, and she's used Khanmigo. So I guess my first question is, how long have you used it? How long have you been familiar with it?
I mean, it was a surprise for all of us at the school, I think, when they first announced it. But we've been, in general, most of the students have been using it since it came out. Yeah.
Which was when?
Oh, good question. It feels like a year ago. When did it come out?
But didn't it come out? I mean, it uses GPT-4, right?
It uses GPT-4, yeah.
So it didn't come out before that.
No, there was a whole secret thing that happened between Sal and OpenAI, where they had beta privileges. Apparently, some of the teachers, KA people, Khan Academy staff members had access to the ChatGPT before it came out, which is interesting.
But you didn't know about that as a student?
No, I don't think no one at Khan Lab School knew.
So it was basically, because I think GPT-4 is March of 2023, a little over a year ago.
Yeah. So
that sounds about right.
Yeah, and then Khanmigo was the beginning of this school year, or the end of last school year. I should probably look that up.
No, but it should be end of last year.
Yeah.
And what did they tell you about it?
So they told us a lot about how we should use it in the classroom. Initially, it was rolled out a lot more at the lower school for the younger grades. I think the second, third, a lot of the fifth graders got a bit out of it. There was I think a couple journalists came by, so that was a reason to start using it. I think after that, though, usage of Khanmigo kind of dropped off a bit. So, yeah. And
so what was your first impression or how did they present it to you to use? Just to try out, or for a lesson? Or?
They didn't do it in a lesson. It wasn't really announced, if I recall. They kind of just existed, and our teacher person, our advisors told us, here's Khanmigo. You can use it if you want to. So, yeah.
And each of you got an account.
Yeah. So now, if you go to khanacademy.org on your KLS account, you'll just go straight to Khanmigo. That's your dashboard. So that's actually been interesting to fight with it to get to your learner home or go to math proper KA. So.
Really? So you have to, it's almost like a concierge or something.
That's a great way to describe it, yeah.
But can't you still click through directly, or?
Yeah, so there's what should I learn next? And you can also, on the home screen, there's learner home. So.
Okay. And so what was your first impression using it?
It seemed fairly intelligent. Initially, I think it made quite a few mistakes in math-wise. I was testing it with simple enough math, though, so it wasn't as you got farther, as you did more complicated math, I think ChatGPT or keeping something like that in another window was just easier because you still got the same learning out of it, but just to be sure.
So you would check on Khanmigo with ChatGPT?
Yeah, so it'd work you through the steps and whatever, but you check your and its math on ChatGPT.
But why? But isn't it based on ChatGPT?
Well, yes, but it is. But Khanmigo is a lot more. Khanmigo used to make a lot more mistakes.
Really, than ChatGPT?
Yeah, or not really as much as. Not more than ChatGPT by a significant amount, but enough that it was worth verifying or double checking.
Because they wouldn't necessarily make the same mistake.
It wasn't necessarily a problem with the math concepts, so I don't think so.
So, I mean, one of my questions was sort of how did it feel different from ChatGPT?
Oh, more exclamation marks. No, but ChatGPT was very much more direct. Khanmigo, I'm sure you've heard this, but Khanmigo is a lot more of a guide, I would say. It asks questions, it engages. I don't think I've ever gotten a straight answer for Khanmigo ever, so it's...
No, I got an account for my son, and he's used it a couple of times, but then I used it recently, and I noticed it's sort of, you ask it how to solve an acceleration in physics, and it'll say, what do you think? instead of giving an answer. So is that was...
I think that was part of it. Like, it didn't necessarily become a resource for like, oh, can you recite all the formulas for XYZ? Because all of the like finagling, no, I don't know, can you tell me? You'd have to do to get it to give you an answer. Like, it was just too time consuming. As far as tutoring goes, like, I used it a bit, but I think it's easier to either ask a teacher. I think after it became integrated with like Khan Academy proper and like the lessons and the quizzes, I think I used it a bit more, especially for tests. There's a feature on Khanmigo where you can ask it to give you practice problems, and I didn't use it a lot. I don't think anyone used it a lot because it basically only showed up on the quizzes themselves, which you're already doing the practice problems. So that's a random tidbit.
You mean the feature where you could ask it to give you practice problems only showed up on the quiz?
Yeah,
not in advance.
I mean, you could also ask it to give you practice problems in advance, but they would definitely not be the same. Actually, be an interesting hack to exploit. I haven't tested enough to see if it would just give you the same problems as the quiz.
And so beyond testing it out, did you use it regularly or pretty much just to...
I think initially I used it a bit for math, and then there was a story feature, and that was really fun for like random one-off descriptions or whatever. Like, as you were writing, it was sort of ChatGPT. Initially, I only used it like that because ChatGPT was blocked on school computers, so you only had access to Khanmigo. Bit of a monopoly on AIs there. But, yeah, so... And I think later I transitioned to using it more for English, like reviewing your work. It's still, like, the UI wasn't still, like, not even, honestly, Grammarly level. Like, the way it sort of highlighted, things to fix or whatever. I think at one point it would just be like, in paragraph 3, sentence number 4, you made one. Yeah, exactly. So it was rough initially.
But it's only been a year and something, but you've noticed a lot of changes in it, or?
Yeah, there's quite a few changes. I think also for us, because the Khan Academy people are upstairs and we can talk to, indirectly we can talk to Sal Khan because all of his kids go here, so we just gossip about it a lot. I think it's easier to get quick results or changes, and the Khan Academy people are genuinely interested in feedback. So
you've seen where people make suggestions and they get implemented.
There's also the report, and there's you can give feedback, right? I think right now it's just you can thumbs up it, but there's a way to do more detailed text feedback. And I think the Khan Academy folks actually look at that, which is impressive.
And so the people who are working, well, I guess all of Khan Academy is working with OpenAI. Or, when you give feedback, is there someone at the school that's sort of responsible for Khanmigo?
It's not that connected, I would say, Khan Academy and Khan Lab School. They are upstairs. Honestly, half the time people aren't even there because it's global. In terms of taking responsibility for it, teachers do have access to whatever you're typing, right? There's also a censorship problem where, really early on, it would flag your account for just, mentioning blood or something. So our history teacher was using it in class to show us, look, let's ask it about the massacre of something, right? And she typed, massacre, and it froze her account. That was interesting. Yeah.
So you guys were really kind of the guinea pigs for it.
Yeah, you could say that again. Mostly because we have sustained access to it, so it's we're kind of not forced to, but it's always an option.
And at the time that it came out, given that it's Silicon Valley, a lot of the kids had access to ChatGPT or something at home, but probably not all of you had constant access, and as you say, was the only one at school.
Yeah, especially at school, that had a pretty big factor. Constant access, I don't think, it wasn't anyone kept it open all the time, which is a whole other issue because of what they're trying to do now. But I guess it was more accessible in some cases, but the fact that it was accessible at all, that specific teaching style, was interesting. Yeah, it was helpful.
And do you guys call it just by name or I mean, I'm wondering about the terminology. Does anyone say teach bot or tutor bot, tutoring bot, teaching chatbot, educational chatbot? What do you guys call it?
I mean, Khanmigo. I guess because at Khan Lab School there's like KA, which is Khan Academy, right? And there's KLS, Khan Lab School. I think people just call it Khanmigo. It hasn't really slipped into the like lingo the way you would say like, oh, ChatGPT it, but like people will say like, oh, let me just use Khanmigo. Often met with a round of laughter. I can't pronounce words. Often met with a round of laughter because it's usually in the weirdest like context. For
oh, okay, it can become Why don't we ask Khanmigo?
Yeah.
Can be used ironically as well. And I mean, what subjects, you mentioned math, you mentioned writing, sort of what, is it always just an adjunct, or are there specific kind of curricula or lessons that you do with it, or it's just kind of an assistant to what you're doing otherwise?
I don't think there's specific lessons where we use, like, that are designed around Khanmigo. I don't think there's any point in which a teacher has said, okay, here's your assignment, now use Khanmigo, or has integrated Khanmigo into something we're learning. I don't think it's been referenced directly a lot in the classrooms. I think that's partly because it's just teachers don't use it a lot, students don't use it a lot. It's a lot of times like a last ditch attempt. Part of that comes from, I think, on the students' part, especially if the assignment doesn't say specifically you can. It's because teachers can see everything you type or whatever, right? So a lot of the times if you write something concerning the assignment, I think a lot of people are like, oh, this will be seen as cheating, or in any way, right? It's assignments in Khanmigo are usually very distinct.
Interesting, right? Because it looks like you're just trying to get the answer and so.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering also, I mean, with Khan Academy is separate, but I don't imagine you guys just sit around all day and watch Khan Academy videos.
I don't think anyone watches the videos. And most people in math just do the quizzes. But yeah, I mean, to the extent that Khan Academy is integrated into what we're learning at all, it's mostly in math. In math, there's a very heavy focus on Khan Academy, and by extent, sort of Khanmigo. I think in the Discord channel for KLS High School, there's a there was a proposal to bring back like Khanmigo and 4-question quizzes on Khan Academy, because that was apparently a tool that people were using quite a bit. Right?
4-question quizzes. What's that?
So on Khan Academy, you can do there's like quizzes which review lessons, and each of those lessons, or most of those lessons, have a few small quizzes that are designed to test you on the subject matter in the lessons, right? So especially since that's like the first introduction of whatever you're learning, that's where Khanmigo is used a lot. Because again, right, it's right there. It's a tool in your tool pouch.
And because I guess that's what I'm wondering, like, in a way it's three, I mean, there's Khan Academy with videos and now Khanmigo. Then there's the Khan School. I mean, I'm wondering how it comes together. I mean, for the outside world, I guess the idea is watch the videos, you can subscribe to Khanmigo, and then it might suggest videos. Is there ever any direct integration between Khanmigo and the videos?
I don't think well, supposedly they'll be able to generate videos, but I don't think there's any connection in which Khanmigo will suggest you content on Khan Academy. There's like a what should I learn next function, which I still don't know how it's supposed to work, because when you click on the activity side, it's the whole thing. I don't think that works. But presumably when you click like what do I want to learn next, it used to just do it based on what assignments or like courses you had signed up for. So for example, I was in like my math course, right? So it would say, oh, how about you do the next lesson to finish your goal in your math course or whatever. So it's a lot more like very obvious, like less AI stuff basically.
So it's not a recommendation engine saying like, wow, you're curious about this, maybe there's a video here. It's not that sort of.
Yeah, I think if you ask, there's two. If you're asking it to like teach me about this random new topic, it will just explain it to you. It won't suggest videos. And if you're trying to get it to like you've done a problem, you got it wrong, and now you want to know what you should do next, Khan Academy already has a lot of these functions where if you click like help me, you'll have videos and articles and resources, and you'll have, after you do a unit test, very baseline like, oh, you didn't get this problem wrong, there'll be a little suggested sparkle next to that lesson saying you should, review it.
Because I guess what I'm sort of getting at is, in principle, these kind of tools could help almost generate a custom curriculum where you're sort of following with something like Khanmigo. It suggests content, it could test you on it. But I mean, they're not trying to do a sort of 360 approach.
It's not there yet, I don't think. It's very much either Khanmigo or the content, because it'll explain it again to you.
True.
Yeah.
It can generate it. It doesn't need the video.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know if they're connected. Like, if you watch a video, it'll offer to quiz you on what you just watched. But I don't think there's like a different, like, I don't think there's the vice versa of that where you'll like have Khanmigo explain something and then you can watch the video or something. I don't think that's a thing that exists.
Okay, and but it can kind of generate the same sort of things you might have seen in a textbook in a traditional context.
Yeah, it can. Honestly, in terms of comparisons to like a textbook, it's better because it'll ask you questions not only like, here guys, examine this problem and think about how these variables like relate, but more specific, like based on what you've demonstrated mastery of and what you still have to learn, let me ask you some questions that will explain, right?
So genuine individualized learning kind of.
Yeah, I think questioning and like guiding you through the process is where individualization and where it really stands apart from like ChatGPT or its other counterparts.
Which would just give you very general answers. Yeah, it wouldn't be targeted to you.
And not even ask you questions. True. ChatGPT just tells you the answer, right? So.
True. Yeah, that is actually a pretty big. The fact that it asks questions is quite unusual for a chatbot.
And the emojis. Oh, the emojis.
Tell me about them.
Oh, okay, so the emojis are really strange. Or not strange. The emojis are sort of like the indicator of Khanmigo, just because they're everywhere in its, like, text, in a way. There's also this really funny function where whenever you click one of the, like, pre-generated replies, it'll start with an emoji, and no one knows why, but it's really funny.
But which emoji?
Somehow it relates to the problem, or the question being asked. It's interesting.
Huh, okay. I'll have to look for the emojis. And does it do any, I mean, I guess it can suggest something that you might need more review on, but it hasn't been used for testing per se, or evaluation. Do you know?
No,
you might not know.
Definitely not evaluation.
No? Okay.
I mean, one of the things that it does is it erases your chat history. So if you go to the activities sidebar, or not erases it, but if you go to the activities sidebar and you click on a different chat, and then you come back to that last chat, it'll be gone, right? So it's still there, right? Like the history is saved and logged, but that means it's really hard to have a continuing evaluation, and like I don't even know if it still uses what you talked about last to inform what you're talking about now. Like for example, you still have to just tell it your grade level or whatever anytime you want to learn something.
Even though it knows who you are.
Yeah, even though it knows who you are. And some of that is nice because you might want to be learning like second grade English or zooming ahead to like calculus or whatever, right? But it's also it kind of makes it a very disjointed experience to use Khanmigo.
Yeah, because I mean, having a continuous kind of following could be, it's one of the potential strengths for this kind of thing.
And with ChatGPT and stuff, you can save different chats. But because each of the chat windows in Khanmigo are geared towards like different styles of learning, or not even styles of learning, but like different things you're learning, I don't know how they would even incorporate that into like the UI, right? Being able to switch between different chats you've had in different subject matters. Yeah.
But I mean, presumably, let's say you've chatted with it quite a bit about math.
Yeah.
At some point, I mean, behind the scenes, it probably could evaluate your level about certain things, like if you've asked repeatedly about a concept or But I mean, there's, as far as you know, they're not trying at that, to do that sort of thing.
That would rely on both you using it you'd have to be using it consistently and also like with completely good intent. Like you'd have to be using it specifically to learn and to grow versus, oh, let me explain this to a friend. Oh, let me just get the answer to this problem. Like there'd have to be sort of a Khanmigo culture where you're only using it to learn. And in that world, it would probably be pretty simple to use it as a diagnostic tool.
But so how do people use it in the real world?
Very disjointedly. And it's a weird word to describe AI, but like the different, like just the fact that you can't save chats, right? That's a very simple thing, but it contributes a lot to people like opening it only when they need to, or, right? And opening it only when they need to is also about the censorship thing that they're trying now with the focus tool, but yeah.
Tell me about that.
Oh yeah, so basically what they have right now is they have a little tool that tells you, like, let me help you focus. And if you run that in the background of your computer, it'll only let you, like, open allowed tabs. And so, at least for, like, Khan Lab School people, we already have a tool called GoGuardian that does a slightly less restrictive version of the same thing, right? So, what I've heard some of the Khan Academy people are talking about is making that like a permanent feature of Khanmigo, right? Which is, you're kind of getting into surveillance state stuff there. It's already getting a bit surveillance state with the let me help you focus and, you know, those tabs. But the moment it becomes like anything school administrators can just like, oh, let me leave this tab running invisibly in the background. Yeah, it's...
But how is it different from GoGuardian that way?
Yeah, so GoGuardian is meant to help you not look at the bad sites. Khanmigo is meant to help you look only at the good sites, right? It's an oversimplification, but, right, focus versus not get distracted, sort of.
So for that reason, you try not to turn it on all the time because it'll limit what you can do?
Yeah, or specifically that tab. I don't think anyone has almost ever used that tab. And, I mean, some people could definitely use it. Like, I know for some people it would definitely be helpful. But it's just, there's something so, like, invadey? That's not a word. But it's such an invasion of privacy, I think, that not a lot of people use it.
And, I mean, all chatbots, obviously, people enjoy spoofing them or having fun. I mean, what are the ways people kind of tweak Khanmigo or play games with it?
I mean, again, I guess that again requires Khanmigo to be such a integral part of the culture that's weird to see it being spoofed or not helping someone learn. Like, as it is, I suggest using Khanmigo for the most random purposes, and that's like the entirety of my Khanmigo history, because I rarely, at least for me, I rarely use it for educational like opportunities. Mostly because I'm either learning stuff in class or I'm learning stuff on Khan Academy. Rarely do I use Khanmigo for anything. And then again, it's a question of like accuracy, because I'm not going to use it for history or whatever, or history or any research-oriented subject, just because of how iffy the replies are going to be. So.
In terms of reliability. Yeah. And have you tried at all the personification where it'll be a historic character?
You mean the craft a story or like talk to a historical figure?
Talk to a historical figure, but right.
Yeah,
both.
Yeah, the historical figure thing is actually it's entertaining, I'd say. And that's why people don't like joke with Khanmigo, because it's already, part of it is a joke. You can get it to talk like a prehistoric caveman or whatever. Actually, I don't think that's an option, but I think it's constrained by both the limits of what you can do with it, like who you can talk to. Other than that, though, I'd say it's a pretty interesting tool. I was playing Macbeth, and I had a friend who was playing Lady Macbeth in a play, and it was a reimagined version of Macbeth. So we were using the Lady Macbeth tool to talk to her and explain, here's our character, how would you adapt if you were in, this social media world or whatever. So that was interesting. It wasn't necessarily eye-opening in any way. Basically, it just said Macbeth follows Lady Macbeth around, and Lady Macbeth likes Macbeth because she sees what he could possibly one day be. which is not the greatest compliment.
But it's potential.
Exactly. But yeah, I think as far as storytelling tools go, I like the historical, especially the talk to a character. His talk to a historical figure, I mean, I don't use it enough, and I don't know enough history of the people you can talk to say for sure, oh, this is accurate, oh, this isn't. But it does feel like claiming to be like a complete, it doesn't claim to be this, but even trying to be like encompass the entirety of an actual person, it just feels a bit off, I think.
And do your classmates use that much, or do you know?
Mostly for like pranks and stuff. Not pranks, but the same thing with like Khanmigo, where you'll kind of joke with it, except you don't need it to make a joke because it already has the historical figures, right?
And which are the most popular historical figures?
Good question. I think generally anything like Roman or Greece, like any. The other thing is, sorry, Khanmigo is a bit Eurocentric. Like, it's obviously it's aware of this bias, or the creators of Khanmigo are probably aware of this bias. Like, they're actively trying to introduce more varied characters you can talk to, but it does, suffer a bit from that bias, I would say.
I mean, you would think Sal Khan would try not to be.
Yeah, obviously. It's just, it's kind of, there is a certain level of bias, I think. Not in the way it talks, just the characters available. And it might also just be from like the amount of published work or whatever. Like it's also generally a larger problem with like the field of history or whatever. So
I mean, ChatGPT was trained mostly on English language, right?
Yeah.
That might be some of the.
I actually haven't done a lot with Khanmigo in other languages, but it does have, if you ask it, it does have quite a list of other languages you can talk to it in. Obviously, Khanmigo insinuates a bit of Spanish, and to the extent that I can understand Spanish, it's pretty good at that. I haven't used it for language learning. I don't, not yet at least. That's actually a good thing to experiment. Try doing that. But language learning. But in terms of just communicating with you in your preferred language, it does have a selection, and it can do it fairly well, I would say. So.
And I think this you've already answered. I mean, the same, Khanmigo doesn't follow a student in each subject. Oh, I know. I mean, do you ever, I think one of the ideas people had early on is you could have, Socrates teach philosophy, or Plato teach, or, Newton teach physics or something like that. But it's not as if the personalities are used for the relevant subject matter.
I mean, if you're trying, for example, right, Newton to teach you physics, you're aiming for just facts, right? You're just trying to learn, let me see how physics works. Let me learn the formulas. And that doesn't really require a personality, I think. And if you're looking for a personality, I don't think there's a single context in which you could say this one person is the master on all things related to philosophy and they should be the only resource consulted, right? So people might look at, here is something that Socrates once said, or let me talk to Socrates about this random point of debate. But I don't think there's ever been a point in which someone has said, let me talk about the entire field of philosophy with Socrates, or something of that nature.
So, I mean, yeah, there's no attempt to sort of adapt the personalities to particular fields.
And that's also because it's not really integrated into the teaching as well, so. Yeah.
And how does, I guess it would really be your school, deal with the fact that it does hallucinate and make mistakes? Do they sort of teach you how to deal with that?
I mean, I don't want to mention this again, but right, that requires people using Khanmigo enough that this is actually a problem that people run into regularly, such that it's actually annoying or a nuisance, right? I think as it is, just keep ChatGPT, just have a calculator open, just have a double checker, and to the extent that people use it at all, that's how they use Khanmigo.
But I mean, for your age level, that makes a lot of sense. Wasn't it introduced though also for younger kids at the beginning? In other words, How does a first grader deal with the fact that maybe it gets the math wrong? Or do you know if they've been, did they give any orientation that to sort of say, that the chatbot might make mistakes?
Yeah, so the lower school has always had a bit more of a structured approach to Khanmigo, because in that case it's teacher facilitated. There are I'm pretty sure there are dedicated times. Don't quote me on that though, because I'm not sure if that's true. But the teachers, they'll go around, you can use it during class, and as such, because it's much more of an accepted part, right, of learning, I think there are more guidelines to how you treat the facts and numbers and whatever it gives you. I do think there was some sort of orientation, or at least a point at which teachers were like, okay, Khanmigo doesn't tell you the truth, make sure, trust but verify, right? I do think that's a larger part of the culture the more you use it, which in this case is the lower school. And I think, yeah, trust but verify is definitely a big part of using Khanmigo. Yeah.
So, I mean, you guys are sort of not necessarily the target age range then?
I mean, I don't know if we're supposed to be the target age range, but we're certainly not using it like they would hope a target age range would use it. So.
And the lower school's through 5th or 6th?
It's right now it's through 6th, but I think next year they want to move the campuses, so it'll be 6th through 12th and 5th through pre-K. That's not, but 5th right now, yeah.
Upper school then right now goes up to the end of high school?
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of the high school?
Yeah.
You don't have a separate middle school or junior high?
No, because middle school is, depending on how you cut it, it's 2 grades to 3, so yeah.
Okay. So upper and lower. And have you or anyone you know played with some of the other teaching chatbots? I mean, there's Duolingo Max, Dragoda, Tutor AI, Clip Tutor, Gizmo.
I don't think those are well known enough for anyone to be really using. Duolingo Max, it's my mom. She's very into she's on the Duolingo streak, but yeah, I don't think, honestly, it might be that Khanmigo is in that perfect range of where it's on the, I hesitate to say better range of learning chatbots, enough that you wouldn't want to go find another one, but not enough that you're oh, I want to go seek out a better one, because it's in that weird spot.
So you really haven't, no one talks about or thinks about other.
Yeah, I don't.
Chegg, I think Chegg also did their own, although it may have been canceled.
Yeah, I don't think anyone does.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's pretty much Khanmigo is
Yeah,
the
if-
only example you guys.
If
are
you
familiar
use
with.
a learning chatbot, you use Khanmigo.
And so it doesn't sound like it's yet a threat to teachers' jobs then.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, it's barely integrated into the classroom. Don't think it's a no threat right there.
So I wanted to ask you some general questions about AI. So some experts say that today's chatbots only give the appearance of understanding things, the stochastic parrot idea, while others say they are emergent learners that actually do understand things about the world or have a real model of the world. Which is it? I
mean, I tend to favor the first one. I think Khanmigo sort of fits into that too. Even the discourse around Khanmigo is oh, it knows the answer, but isn't it great that it can try to ask you stuff, right? Even that sort of insinuates that there's it's more of a, let me camouflage this with flowery language versus let me use my teaching skills and empathy to engage the students or whatever. So.
But it's faking it in some way.
Yeah. And I don't think it really changes the way people interact. I don't think it changes with the way I interacted with it. I mean, yeah, I can see if you suddenly realize or favor one or the other, it might change, but yeah.
So, I mean, you generally feel that it's limited more than there's it surprises you with its level of ability.
I wouldn't say surprises you. I don't think anyone mistakes it for being human or in any way, really.
Or an emergent learner.
Yeah, or an emergent, right?
Human.
Yeah.
And so could you help the general public visitor understand the issue of explainability, with today's LLMs? What about the fact that they state falsehoods with conviction?
I mean, honestly, that's like as good practice for speech and debate or whatever as you're gonna get. Like, for the question, do you?
Well, just explain, like, to someone who doesn't know why, what is important to know about that issue that they make those kind of statements.
I mean, I think it's an important test in going with your gut, and also being able to verify. I just make sure, trust but verify, right? You can go as long as the chatbot is trying to tell you what it thinks is right, but also it's a chatbot. It's going to make mistakes, and you have the power to test it. So do that.
And how do you verify? When Khanmigo tells you something you suspect, how do you verify it?
I think it depends on the nature of whatever you think is suspect. If it's math, generally just use a calculator. If it's history, like, generally don't trust Khanmigo or chatbots in general on history, just because I think we're all aware of the hallucinations and research mistakes. So just research it yourself. Ask for sources if possible. Never take anything on like base level. Using another chatbot, I mean, it can work. It depends on what level of accuracy and like how important it is, whatever you're checking. But like if you're looking for a baseline, that's always a good idea, especially if you can ask it to explain its steps. Usually with Khanmigo, though, the errors I notice are just like, 2 + 2 = 5. So it's not really as much of like, your steps are wrong here. It's just like basic math. So.
Do you use Wikipedia much? Or?
I mean, I don't use Khanmigo for research a lot, generally. I think if you're using Khanmigo, if you're trying to understand like high-level math concepts, I'm going back to math because that's what I use Khanmigo for the most. I think most people use it for Khanmigo. Khanmigo for math. I think you'd use it to provide you summaries of like Wikipedia articles or like basically ideas and stuff. I don't think there's a case in which you'd be like, this sounds suspect, let me go read the complicated terminology-filled Wikipedia article to check. Yeah.
And how about when chatbots make dangerous suggestions?
I don't think Khanmigo has made suggestions in any way. Like, it's fairly unbiased. I don't think it's ever, like, okay, I'm going back to Khanmigo, I guess, but I think even the censorship on what even you're allowed to type and the way you can flag and the fact that it's monitored, Khanmigo has really, like, I've never really seen Khanmigo make any dangerous, not mistake, but dangerous, like, insinuation or whatever. I think the closest you can come is, like, the debate feature where you can, like, talk about issues. And even then it's fairly, like, impartial and covers its bases and, yeah.
But, I mean, I guess having it ask questions takes heads off a lot of those issues.
Yeah, it's not making declarative statements. And I haven't tried it, but I assume if you do say biased or hateful thing, well, one, your account will get frozen, but also I don't think it would take that in stride, like the way if you were like ChatGPT, for example, would. So.
And it's not going to generate most of what it produces. You don't see bias and bigotry, and because it's not really even making statements. In the same way.
I think they did a good job of, weaning it off, like. Making it more impartial, I think.
But how should people deal with bias and bigotry in chatbots in general?
I mean, I think be aware that it can happen, especially in chatbots in general. Like, it's going to be there, especially based on what you're feeding it, I think. So just always have some sort of check. But also, if you do notice it, like, at least in Khanmigo, there's a way to report that. Otherwise, I don't really know, like, point it out, ignore it. It is just a language model, so, like, if you feel uncomfortable, just close the tab. It's not trying to do anything, so.
And what most excites you about learning chatbots and this technology moving into the future?
I mean, personalized learning for sure, right? Being able to see being able to really embody the idea that every person learns at their own pace is going to be a game changer, I think. There are some people have integrated it such that, like, you can learn with the class, but you can also learn at your own pace. And it's going to be, like, amazing to be able to learn what you want at your own levels with the rest of your class. Like, you can learn the same concept, but learn it to different... Like, that's what most of learning, like, what education standards are. It's just taking a concept farther and farther and farther, depending on the grade. And being able to do that with Khanmigo in class with the rest of your school or whatever, it's going to be amazing.
And what's required to get there? What would... I know, you were in this first, really, set of people using this, but what do you see as the main things required to reach that?
Well, not necessarily standardization, but at least everyone having access to some form of an educational chatbot. At least at Khan Lab School, what I noticed is making it part of the culture. Like, oh, you don't know what's happening? Go to Khanmigo, figure it out. Or even just having set aside time for playing with Khanmigo and learning is going to be really important for making sure you can use it to its full potential.
And you had mentioned before that it doesn't follow everything. I mean, it's disjointed, that it's not kind of a continuous tutor that's following your progress. Would that be an important
I don't know how strange it would be to have, like, a personality helping you learn. Like, the moment it feels like you're abandoning a friend to talk to a teacher or, like, go play outside, that's gonna have some really interesting implications. And also doing it with younger kids where Khanmigo feels like a distinct person, like, that's gotta have some psychological implications somewhere. But I think, yes, making it more disjointed, having be able to have a conversation and, like, a flow, but making it have opinions of its own or feel like a distinct character isn't necessarily a priority, I think, and it doesn't need to be when you're trying to make educational chatbots relevant and important.
But can you have one without a personality?
I mean, you can have one without a distracting personality, I think. Like, if you define the personality so strictly, as with Khanmigo, where it's, okay, I will help you learn by asking you questions, I will not give you the straight answer, like, that works, I think, in terms of creating a character. Yeah. You do have to be very strict about what you want it to be, though, I think. So.
If you could create your own chatbot, what would it be like, and what would it do? I
mean, I think it...
And if you could maybe answer once for education, once more generally.
Yeah, education-wise, I think there should be modes. Like, with Khanmigo, it's great that it can guide you through stuff, it can explain difficult concepts, but it's also great that ChatGPT can just explain your answer and tell you if you got it right or wrong. And obviously there needs to be no errors, and it needs to actually have a firm grasp on math and no hallucinations. But being able to switch between what you need to learn right then is going to be pretty important, I think. Yeah, both methods have their pros and cons. In general, I mean, some of the same. Making it more distinct, I think, or integrated. I keep saying integrated a lot, but being able to access it from any page or at all times is probably going to change a lot of that. And as far as generally, like, personal chatbots go, I think personalities are going to develop anyway, and that'll be interesting, I think. I view chatbot personalities with the same, like, Google Assistant voices. It's just kind of a veneer over the same thing, but it's really fun, I think, to interact with different personalities. So
if you had your own personal teaching chatbot, what personality would you like it to have?
I mean, honestly, I quite like Khanmigo. Maybe a little bit less aggressively friendly, I would say. But, yeah. Khanmigo is actually a pretty good reference as far as personalities and tutors go. So, that's interesting. Something.
And do they put voices on it?
You can interact with it vocally, I think. I don't think you can... And there's text to speech, obviously, but I don't think it has voices.
Okay, so that's probably a decision not to personify.
Yeah, I think the moment you start
that
adding
much.
voices and accents, it's probably gonna get a bit more hairy.
They don't have it speak with Sal Khan's voice.
That would be great. Oh, that'd be amazing. How would it pronounce the emojis, though? It's actually a good suggestion. I should start bugging Dia about that. Dia's Sal Khan's.
He's got a great style for video. Why wouldn't it work for?
I mean, it's recognizable. Or Dave from the grammar videos.
There you go.
Yeah. Sorry, we're way off topic.
No. I'm asking about what personality you would like a teaching chatbot to have. So I mean, yeah, you've answered that. And for so if you could create your own chatbot, what would it do? What would you like a chatbot to do, in general, not just education? If you made your own.
Yeah, I think organization is a big thing. Like being a student dashboard, right? Like I'm using Notion as a reference, but being able to have all of my tasks and all the things I've referenced and all of my tasks and all the things that I've referenced and all of my different files. Like Google does a relatively good job with like Drive and Keep and stuff, but sort of something that can compile every service I use. And that does have weird privacy implications and stuff, but I think it'd be really cool if you could go to one page and it had everything you needed to do and like basically be a manager, like a secretary sort of. That would be interesting.
Intelligent assistant, or
yeah, basically
Siri, but with full chatbot
slightly,
capabilities.
Yeah, slightly higher level, I would
Smarter
say.
Siri.
Exactly. Khanmigo just needs to be smarter Siri. That was the takeaway from this interview.
And I did interview Adam Shire, one of the main creators of Siri, and I mean, he wants it to be smarter too. His next whatever.
Great minds think alike.
What do you see as the greatest potential risk or harm from chatbots, and also specifically teaching chatbots?
Teaching chatbots, especially the younger you go, like social emotional learning. I think being able to interact with a judgment-free zone full of exclamation marks and smiley faces is great when you're learning, but also terrible for learning to manage your emotions and interact socially. I think as it is right now, Khanmigo and other educational tutors are by no means a replacement for like teachers or friends, but I think as they become better, it's gonna be hard to make sure people are still developing social skills, I'd say. So.
And so some people are talking about apocalypse and human extinction in connection to chatbots and AI, while others are talking about a kind of utopia in our future. What do you think of these conversations?
I mean, both of them are kind of generalizing. By no means is this heralding like the coming of the end times. I mean, server space, like you can talk about all you want about like the climate implications of having to store, right, all of this offsite and with wind and cooling and whatever. But I don't think I've never really followed the arguments that are like, oh, chatbots herald the end of human intelligence or whatever. I mean, you could argue that started with like the rise of calculators or whatever, where you didn't have to do mental calculations all the time. I don't think it's gonna be kind of utopia, because chatbots, they're fundamentally just reflections of whatever you put into them, right? In this case, we put like all the illegally scraped like data on the internet, right? So it's fundamentally, I keep saying fundamentally, chatbots they're human, and where they go kind of depends on us, so.
So are we worried about the right things then? I guess you're saying not.
Yeah, I mean, are we worried about the right things? I guess it depends on the chatbot, for one, right? Accuracy, but also, I think people are making this out to be a bit bigger than it is. Obviously, cheating is a concern, and, you can see where some of these arguments are going, but it is quite the logical fallacy or leap of assumption, I would say.
And are we hopeful about the right thing?
I mean, what are we even hopeful about, though, in chatbots? I think chatbots are really cool that we can do them, and it's great that they exist, and I think being able to recognize that we now have this cool tool is great. But I mean, I don't know, what are we hopeful about in chatbots? Like, what have you noticed? Because
well, and if you broaden it to AI at all, it's this sort of, it's going to solve the climate crisis, cure cancer, and well, all the tedious parts, and more in maybe the chatbot, on the tedious parts of our jobs will go away, and we'll be free to watch TV or whatever.
Go to a higher plane of existence. I think, yeah, freeing your schedule up from busy work is a great productive use of AI, I would say. But we're not there at a moment yet where everything is accurate and everything is correct, and that's actually something that can happen. The idea that AI is going to replace human intelligence, I mean, given that I assume I treat it as, language models, it's just guessing the next word people would be likely to say. I don't think we're there yet. That's my opinion, so.
And are you, you're probably, 8 years away from entering the workforce.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that, are you either hopeful or fearful of what impact AI might have on jobs by the time you're?
I mean, it's definitely going to have an implication, especially for writers. And yeah, I guess my biggest concern is writing, I would say, quite obviously. Just the generative power, not necessarily that it's going to make all writing obsolete. Great writing is always going to be there, I would say. More that it's going to discourage young writers who want to grow but are seeing chatbots and AI and feel like it's not the best way to go. And also the people, it's going to be sort of harrowing, I think, to try and rise above everyone who writes like an AI, or whose writing style can be imitated by an AI. And as they, right now AI can only do formal academic essay, terrible writing. But I think as it improves, it's going to be able to imitate fancier and fancier writing styles. Not fancier as in more snooty, but more different, right?
Variety.
Yeah. I think that's a concern. Just, yeah, generally places where you're just writing, where you're just creating, creators as a job is going to be, it's going to be interesting to see how the job evolves. I would say manufacturing, I do want to, I don't know. I feel like manufacturing is going to be really interesting. Not for any particular reason, but...
But and you're growing up sort of with chatbots. Do you see them more as a collaborator, like the generative aspects of generative AI? Do you see yourself working with, that they would augment your abilities, let's say in writing or something like that, or that it's a competitor? I mean,
not a competitor, I don't think. I don't think I give chatbots enough, I wouldn't say respect, but something of the kind for it to be a serious contender for a writing partner, or let me learn. I think it's a way to learn. I don't think it's a way to produce, I guess. Mostly because they're quite limited, and generally, I don't know, chatbots in general are not something I would go to when I'm trying to be creative or write or draw or do whatever. So.
And how do you feel about the potential use of energy by AI in data centers?
Yeah, no.
Water, energy.
Yeah, that's There's a ton of, data.
The actual question is AI environmentally sustainable?
I mean, just the amount of power. I don't think it's necessary. AI is a part of it, to be sure, but just generally, like, I don't know, over manufacturing, a capitalist society, right? I don't want to go all right. Generally, though, I do think something needs to be done. Like, climate change is a real issue, and we are overusing our resources. Not unrelated fact, but random fact. It's actually interesting because my dad got, like, you can get computers with enough, like, memory space to be able to run an AI on your personal computer, which is a really interesting thought, I think. In having your entire AI locally run. That's for, like, companies and, company secrets or whatever. It's gotta be interesting, but, yeah. Servers in general are just, I don't like them, but, everything relies on them, so.
So you see putting computing at the edge and more locally could be...
I'm not necessarily saying that's the answer. It's just an interesting option.
And do you think that will empower, like robots in a way that maybe hasn't happened, where you have the full LLM running in your vacuum cleaner and you can intelligently direct it to clean your house or things like that? Have you thought about those sort of things?
Just redesign the Roomba. I guess locally run AI, I've read enough sci-fi to see, like, these places where, it's going to be really funny and really interesting to have, like, an intelligent chair or whatever. I don't think we're headed in that direction. I do think, like, we already sort of have that with smart homes and, like, smart fridges and stuff. Maybe AI is the next step. I don't know. But that'd actually be interesting. I don't really have an opinion on the way AI is going to progress in, like...
Yeah, no, I'm asking part because your dad's friend Adam thinks that we're going to get a lot of, large language models at the edge and in fairly ordinary scenarios. I mean, your microwave or whatever.
I can see that. That'd be interesting, actually. But I don't think there's not enough. That sounds like a bad Temu product. I'm just saying.
A solution in search of a... Right.
Yeah.
So, and how about, you probably heard the quip, when you hear AI, look for the people that are often doing low-paid, correcting language models and those sorts of things, or training them, reinforcement learning. Is that a concern with today's chatbots?
Yes, but in the greater, like, scheme of, like, people are being, exploited, and it's a good example of the general, like, low pay, like, AI is just kind of I can't pronounce words. It's making the problem, it's making a point of the problem, but the problem doesn't stem from AI, right? So it's generally a problem in the tech industry, right? Of, not exploiting workers, but low paying jobs and the dichotomy between different jobs, I guess.
So looking back at using Khanmigo specifically, what was your best and worst experience?
I think my best experience, I was preparing for a test. It was like exponents or something, and it was just me, like, practicing, and I was doing the problems, and notice how it was math, right? Both KA and Khanmigo fundamentally have sort of a focus on math, even after being a chatbot, which I would say is really impressive. I think the worst experience...
but how did it help you?
I did the problems, and it explained what I got wrong and what I did right. Sometimes, like, I think I forgot half of what I learned about exponents, like, prior to that. So I think an interesting thing about Khanmigo is that if you get it right, you can still ask it to explain, like, a better answer. How did it get there? Yeah. So that was really fun because I both learned stuff and I did practice problems, and I came away feeling more confident and like I learned some stuff. The worst experience was like sometime near the beginning, and was really tired, and I was trying to get it to get it to give me feedback on an English paragraph, I think, and its feedback wasn't making sense. It was still during the in paragraph 3 phase, so it already wasn't great. Yeah, I gained nothing from that experience, and I ended up just going over it in the morning. So.
And how about the funniest experience with it?
Oh, the Lady Macbeth story, where we tried to do research for a play, and they came away with Macbeth is a spineless worm who does not deserve to live. It was an interesting experience.
Generative. And maybe the saddest experience was one.
I'm not emotionally connected to Khanmigo, but that hurt, okay?
And what is the most important thing for everyone to understand about chatbots?
They're not people. They're not replacements for anything. Go thank your local cafe author. But yeah, they make mistakes, and they're just predicting words. By no means are they people, and by no means are they authoritative resources on anything. So, yeah.